This is just one more indication that we are getting closer and closer to some sort of an event. People talk about a reset or some sort of an event where the whole global system feels these reverberations, these shock waves.
This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888-81-LIBERTY. And either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs. Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're here with Miles Franklin, Precious Metals CEO Andy Schectman for a weekly market update this Tuesday, August 7th, 2021. Andy, thanks for coming back on the show.
And again, it's always a joy and pleasure to see you. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thanks. We've been getting lots of calls following last week's discussion when we talked about the trend that you are seeing of higher net worth individuals and trusts and funds with deeper pockets moving in and waking up and trying to put more and more budgets, larger budgets, into metals, and your concern that there may come a time, perhaps soon, when that would leave ordinary retail purchasers out in the cold if the bigger purchasers clean off the shelves. And I will, that's one thing we wanted to talk about, circling back with additional examples of that just came up in the past week. Also, wanted to talk to you about questions that keep coming in from clients talking about what is it like working with Miles Franklin? How do you even do it? What are the mechanics and the steps of going through ordering for the first time from Miles Franklin? Do you have to set up an account? How do you lock in your price? How do you pay? How do you receive your stuff? So I was going to ask you some questions about that. And then before we do either of those, if you could talk to us about things that are happening in the market and in the world of economy and finance that are on your radar at this time and that got your eye about changes you see in the winds, and then we'll get into some of these specific questions.
Yeah, first of all, if anyone out there is a student of economics, you would know that the two major schools of thought would be Austrian and Keynesian. What we follow in the United States is a Keynesian-based system, which is a system based upon consumption, spending, taxation. It's a system that I think has many holes and flaws in it, and in particular when compared against the Austrian school, where we talk about savings, investment, and reinvestment, building an economy. It seems like a much more sound approach. Well, if you read any Ludwig von Mises, who is the father of Austrian economics, he talks about an environment where I think we are right now, and it's called the crackup boom. And the environment that he talks about is an expansion of credit, a massive expansion of credit leads to misallocations of capital and distortions in price. And what that means is that we have an environment where all this credit gets extended and asset prices, boom, they crack up to the boom side. They go way, way higher. And if you see a slowdown in any capacity, a slowdown in economic terms or anything that isn't going to be able to continue to pump air into the balloon at the pace that it was going, you see a massive deflation in asset prices where things start to collapse. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen here all at once, but we're beginning to see this happen across the globe. And yesterday, we saw an article on Zero Hedge for a company in China called Evergrande, and their bonds are collapsing. It's almost they're equating it to China's Lehman problem. Now, Lehman Brothers, I think their numbers were 50, 60, $70 billion. China Evergrande is $300+ billion. Their bonds were just lowered to a level by a Chinese rating agency where they're no longer allowed to access the repo market. Now, I want people to think about the repo market. We've talked a lot about the reverse repo market lately. Imagine the repo market whereby kind of like a payday loan deal where you have payroll to pay, but you don't have enough money today, but you will in a couple of days. And so you pledge some security or some sort of a collateral. Normally it's treasury bonds, or in this case, it would be the Evergrande bonds. And those Evergrande, I believe it's pronounced, they were of high enough quality to be pledged for the repo market. And so those bonds would be given overnight to the bank, and the bank would give you money to pay your payroll. In essence, you are basically saying, you're going to front us the money. Here is the collateral. We'll pay you back, and then we'll have enough money to cover our obligations tomorrow. Well, this is a company that is massively leveraged and massively in debt, and now their bonds have been lowered so it can't access the overnight lending market. It's going to collapse. And the systemic nature of companies like this, corporations like this, the biggest developer in China, collapsing is frightening, because what that does is it has systemic ramifications where everything is so interconnected. Now, I'm not saying this would be the fuse, so to speak, or the match that lights the fuse that breaks things, but expect to see more things like this in an environment where prices have, or price discovery is next to impossible. And if there's any slowdown at all, then this is what happens. You start to not be able to service that debt obligation. And in this case, you have a company whose ratings have required a downgrade in their bonds, and it is pretty much the rubber meets the road moment for Evergrande. And it'll be an interesting story, because I don't think China's going to bail them out and they're just going to let them fail. And if that happens, what does it mean globally? I guess we will have to see. But when you see Zero Hedge calling it a China's Lehman Brothers moment, I listened to Stephen Van Meter talk about it the other day, and he's more or less making it seem like this is a huge deal. Systemically, could have global reverberations, could bring down the whole system. When you look at Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and how it related to AIG, you listen to these guys talk about it, and they say they were staring into the abyss. It was moments away from, if they didn't bail out AIG, the whole thing collapsing. When you get to a crack-up boom phase like this, where misallocation of capital and resources is so incredible, you have that moment where you have to pay the piper. It's like sitting in the corner seat at the bar every single day for 10 years and never paying your tab. At some point, you got to pay the tab. And when everything is built upon leverage like this, it's a scary thing done again. And I think this is just one more indication that we are getting closer and closer to some sort of an event. People talk about a reset or some sort of an event where the whole global system feels these reverberations, these shockwaves. So this is a big deal, maybe one of the biggest ones we've seen in terms of the larger market. Now, I think it pales in comparison to OPEC or Saudi Arabia and Nigeria signing military cooperation deals with Russia, the two biggest OPEC oil-producing countries in the world. But here again, every week it's something else. We talk about return on capital or return of capital. To me, things like this, the contagion that could spread across the globe like that, when we talk about the possibility of the dollar losing its petro status, when we look at all of these things that keep on happening, then again, this is why we own gold and silver. It's for return of your money. It's because it's wealth. And in a world where price discovery is next to impossible, I think it's very, very important to take a step back from traditional assets and look to a little bit of safety right now. And this is just another example of that.
You're reminding me of things that we've talked with like Rick Rule about and others about this, the illiquidity of some of the financial market, and that this could really cause increased volatility going forward in both directions. But this the systemic risk is something even like Danielle DiMartino Booth, who's been on our show talking about. She says that systemic risk is by its very nature uncontainable if it can just take down the whole system. So they've been trying to adjust and add lubrication and liquidity injected into the system. But at some point, if you start to get failures of major parts. There's lots of dependencies between these major banks, leveraged bets that have been made on those, that sort of thing.
And then insurance on top of those bets. That's why AIG had to be built out. So everyone's connected, and then everyone will buy some sort of a collateralized obligation or some sort of an insurance policy against the risk. And if all of a sudden the systemic nature of it is so large, what happens to the insurers and the reinsurers? I mean, we're so far down the rabbit hole that all of these financial assets, in my opinion, are weapons of mass financial destruction. And it's not going to take much, I think, on a deal like this to really open people's eyes to just how risky the whole financial system is. And, I don't remember the exact number, but when the last time we saw this, you had a massive rush on the money markets, and then they put gating in. People are going to wake up one morning to see an event that's going to make them panic and make them do something. And this leads into what we were talking about.
Right. That's what I wanted to tie back to that, because when you talk about people starting to realize what you're describing is these increasingly frequent and increasingly impactful moments of volatility, there is an awakening happening. And it's interesting because we see, when we've talked to Rick Rule about this as well and others, that there's different financial advice that's given at different layers of the layer cake. The sovereign, the governments and the central banks and so on have been taking care of themselves pretty well, thank you, for the last 4 years. You've talked to us step by step through that. And then you've got kind of the tinfoil hat wearing people at the grass level who are following their gut this whole time, who've been taking care of themselves by stacking along the way and preparing. That's our reluctant preppers along the way. And in the middle, you've got this mass of people from the working class, middle class, upper middle class, and maybe the upper lower classes who've been just pleased to make whatever they've been able to make on the equity markets, the stock markets, the bond markets, the real estate. And now these people with deeper pockets, maybe not the uber rich that they already knew what was going on, but the people who are still much more significantly funded than most people are now waking up. And you were giving us a heads up about that last week. It really raised some concerns on many people's parts. And it ties in exactly what you're saying now, if you've got an awakening of those people.
Let me read this real quick. It says the start of a bank run at Evergrande is the latest sign that China's most indebted property developer will inevitably default on $305 billion of liabilities to banks, shadow lenders, suppliers, home builders, unless Beijing bails it out. They're looking like they're not going to bail it out. And this is just one player. What happens when and now these bonds are no longer accepted as collateral. And so you're going to get all of these banks that want immediate repayment of debt. It's just going to spiral the problem. What happens when this starts to get a little bit closer to home? And I think that this is why this is what I think is the type of awakening or moment where when something like that happens closer to home, overnight, everyone runs to the one place that you can actually go right now, and that's metals. And this is when people get shut out. Imagine everyone trying to run through you're in an auditorium and it lights on fire and there's one revolving door and everyone's trying to get through that door at once. It doesn't work. I've never been more convinced of that in my life, that this is coming. And this, to me, only crystallizes why, for the last 4.5 years, the biggest money in the world has been slowly de-dollarizing, the no-look pass, goose all the equity markets up to the moon, and then slowly exit stage left. And that's what they're doing. And they're moving into gold and silver while holding down the paper prices to not alert people to the fire exit in the back stage left. And you have to understand misdirection is very pervasive. And as soon as it becomes obvious to the big money what's going on, and I say big money, the really big money's already figured it out. But the big money in this country who's got millions of dollars in the bank and traditional assets, they're going to wake up and be very frightened very quickly. And I'm convinced of that because something like this, it happens so quickly. And then it starts to spread so quickly that the doors get they get locked. And that's what I was getting at last week with you. And we've been seeing that in far, I'm not saying massive volume increase. I'm saying the size of orders are growing exponentially. And from people who largely have never bought before. That's very different. And throwing around $1 million like it's no big deal. Now, I don't want people to feel that we only work with large clients. You know, that same day I did an order for 3 Silver Eagles to one of your listeners. And, you know, we're happy to help any way that we can. But I am simply saying that there's a lot of money out there that has believed that hope springs eternal and that everything is fine and green shoots are coming out of everywhere. And I think we're going to wake up to the need to look for an alternative. And that's what I was trying to get at yesterday. And this deal with Evergrande, to me, is symptomatic of what we can expect to see here as well.
Example of a wake-up call that's going to wake up those who have significant funds and could really clean off the shelves. One of the questions that we keep getting asked by clients, their new first-time clients, is how do they work with Miles Franklin? People are familiar in some cases with going down to the local coin shop where they walk in the front door, lay down some cash or a check and walk out with some metal in their pocket. Some people are familiar with ordering online. They've been doing it through Amazon. They've been doing it through, everything.com. They just go on to some online dealer, click, fill their cart, pay, check out, the stuff gets shipped to them. But Miles Franklin doesn't do either of those two methods of payment. We don't have a physical storefront where you can walk into and lay cash down on the counter, and we don't have a web store. So when people buy from Miles Franklin, they ask, well, how does this work? And one of the questions that comes up is, why would they want to talk to a individual broker when they call on the phone, and what do they get from it? And does it cost them a lot more than buying at an online store?
First of all, the answer is no, it doesn't cost more. We will be uber competitive. And in most cases, as more so than anyone in North America. I've always resisted saying I'll be the cheapest company. That doesn't denote, I think, that doesn't bode well for who we are as a company. Or it doesn't, I don't know, it's just the wrong terminology. But in terms of price, yes, we will try to be the most competitive price in the country. We will do our best every single time. I think you will really appreciate a relationship when a problem arises, God forbid. And that's why we've never had a customer complaint in 31 years. A problem is an opportunity to strengthen a relationship. Some people don't need to speak to a broker. That's fine, understood. A lot of people do. The relationship aspect of our business is who we are. It's who we've always been. And I think more people than not prefer the relationship business. And accountability and accessibility is something that we work really, really hard at. Now, is it as convenient as an online shop or click? No, it's not, but it's safer. We are building an online portal. It's certainly more challenging than I would have anticipated. It's taking a little bit longer. It will be done here soon. I've seen the mock-up. I've seen the beta. It looks really neat. It's working well. I would have hoped it would have been done by now, but it's not. It's still a little ways away. So for those people that want to be able to click, we'll have that option. But in a world of decreasing privacy and identity theft, we've chosen for a long time to be old school. But we won't make it any more difficult. And we will always be strong in accountability and there when you need us. And our prices will be as good as anybody. And you're off the matrix, so to speak. You're not placing an order online. You're doing it old school and developing a relationship. And I don't know, I think for a small segment of the population, that's not what they want. They want to be able to click in their underwear at 2:30 in the morning. Great, so be it. We'll offer that at some point here soon. In the meantime, we've done this for 31 years, and we've built relationships, and we have done it so well that no one has complained yet. And so that, to me, is what I hang my hat upon. I'm old school. Then again, I still feel like I'm 17 in the back of my mind. Here I am at 51 years old and realize I wouldn't have changed a thing looking back upon it because I know my clients' integrity, their privacy, everything that's important to me has been held well intact for them. And although I am starting to give in, to technology, only because I've been convinced over and over and over again that this time they'll be able to safeguard privacy. For now, we're not, but we will be as competitive or more so than every online company out there. That I can promise you. And really, the big reason, Dunnigan, is this is a federally non-regulated industry. And we're licensed and bonded in the state of Minnesota, where our corporate office is. And that's a big delineation, a big departure from this entire industry, which is federally non-regulated. The state of Minnesota has licensing and bonding requirements that make 99.5% of every company in America not work with Minnesota, because it holds us to a far higher standard. So for the inconvenience of making a phone call, you get a company that is one of only 24 U.S. Mint resellers in the world, never had a customer complaint, worldwide exclusives with Brinks, and licensed and bonded, whereby we have a $2 million surety bond where if anything wrong happens, you're immediately paid back by the state of Minnesota, and they find a bounty hunter to find me hiding under my desk. So, it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but true. An industry that has seen a lot of companies steal money. That'll never happen with us. And that, to me, is what I hang my hat upon. And for the inconvenience, you get a whole lot of safety and competitive pricing.
All right. Well, I'm starting a habit of this, and I don't mean to, but it seems like it helps to get important issues out. I'm going to put you on the hot seat for a question here. It's one that we keep hearing. I keep seeing it appear in comments underneath various interviews that we do. I know you've heard it before. We've talked about it before, but it bears bringing up again because it keeps coming up. And that the general theme of it is people saying, if metals are so good, why does Andy sell them? And if fiat currency is so bad, why would Andy trade good metals for bad currency? And if he believed in what he was selling, why would he sell it? And I don't know how to respond to that other than I did respond last week to a questioner, and I said, just think it through what you're saying. But I'll let you respond personally about your life habit of acquiring and that sort of thing. But I would just say from a logic standpoint, if somebody like, say, Noah believed a flood was coming, so he built himself an ark, and then he was able to help other people build themselves arks, or somebody who believed in growing food, like a farmer, and then they sell it at the store, at the farmer's market or something, does that mean that they think it's no good and that people shouldn't have it? It's like, if you believe something's good, if you really believe in it, why would you not only take part in it yourself, but try to help others do it as well and build a business around that? So I'll let you answer from a personal standpoint. Why does Andy sell his gold if it's so good? Why would Andy sell his?
I hope the person who said this will forgive me. But I mean, I find it to be a really naive, almost laughable statement. We did over $600 million in sales last year. Should I have spent $600 million on gold and silver for myself? Well, if I had the money, I probably would have. The point of it is that this has been my business since 1989, when gold was $250 and silver was $3 or $4 an ounce. I've lived through the deepest, darkest bear markets anyone could ever imagine, in a period of time when nobody wanted gold and silver, where we started our company on a wing and a prayer and a loan from a friend. It's only till now that we've gotten to a place where these questions are even somehow asked. I've been buying precious metals, as I've said on your show many times, every 2 weeks for 31 years. I believe in it to my core, to my soul. I am 100% invested in precious metals and own one of the nation's largest precious metals company. I am not the poster child for Finance 101. I am completely lacking diversity in my portfolio, and I sleep very well at night. So to that person, I do believe everything that I say completely and totally, and I own a business trying to help as many people as I can. And they go hand in glove to me. So just because I sell it, when I take fiat in, it goes to pay, to buy the metal, to pay my employees, to to pay my own bills. But any spare cash that I have done, again, I put it into gold and silver. And I think about this all the time. What would I do if I won the lottery? Where would I put my money? Stocks, bonds, and real estate at all-time highs, or into precious metals at you could argue as low as they've ever been in an inflation-adjusted basis in a world that's gone mad. That's where I'd put my money. So I don't know what to say to that person other than think it through, like you said. Does that mean a baker who loves apple pies should not, like Mrs. Fields? Mrs. Fields, if she never sold cookies, the world never would have had them. Everyone loves Mrs. Fields cookies if you're old enough to remember them, and she loved them too. The point of it is that one has nothing to do with the other. I understand precious metals because I've been doing it since I was 19 years old. And in the 31 years that I've been doing it, most of the time was a struggle and a grind and just trying to make ends meet. And I still bought it every 2 weeks because I believed in it that much. Just because times have changed and I've been able, sometimes in life you have to just be there, hang on long enough to be there to see this kind of market. Just because I've had strong fingertips and been able to hang on and stay out of debt and be here at this period of time doesn't mean that I still don't personally accumulate it the same way I did in 1989 when I had no money and precious metals were not on anyone's radar screen. So I hope that answers the question, but simply to say that if everyone who had passion in anything, who started a business around that, felt that way, half of the wonderful things in this world wouldn't even be ever been made available. So I guess that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I guess the converse of that is if you take the attitude that business owners only sell what they think is not good and not worthwhile, then you wouldn't want to buy anything from anyone because they're only getting rid of their stuff.
Well, that's the point.
So I think there's some fundamental flaws in that thinking, and also just to clarify, it's not Andy's personal, it's not like Scrooge McDuck sitting on a pile of a treasure room and selling out from your personal treasure. You're running a business that's helping other people to do what you have done. And I'm part of that as well. Okay. In the spirit of helping other people do as you have done, what is your weekly special you have planned for us this week to help us to acquire metal at the best price possible? Okay,
so as I've mentioned ad nauseum, I am a U.S. Mint reseller. We are sitting on about 100,000 2021 Type 2 Silver American Eagles. And I've looked around and the online companies that I really respect have them over $8 a coin, over spot. Some are just under. We're going to offer them at $7.25 over, which I'm hoping, as far as I can tell, will be the best price in the United States. The more that we have premiums come down, the more we will adjust the premiums down. And as long as it is humanly possible to get product at a fair price and sell it at a fair price, we will be at the forefront of that. I love Silver Eagles. I truly do. And I've had a hard time recommending them. I've been sitting on these coins since July. And I've had a very hard time telling people to buy them at $10, $11, $12, $13, $14 over the price of silver. At 7.25, which puts us the top 0.25% pricing in North America, I began to think about it. When I look at what's happening around us, as God is my witness, done again, I believe we are going to see premiums go right back up again. And because of the increased demand in this industry. And it's happening. I feel it. I see it. During the business day, I don't have time to answer the phone when my parents call, when my friends call, when my wife calls. It's that busy right now. And it doesn't take much more of that type of an environment, truthfully, to see prices really go, or premiums really go up, because it's getting harder and harder to find this stuff. So at this rate right here, I'm comfortable saying to someone, yeah, these are the brand new Silver Eagles. They're worth owning some, and I think we're the best price in the country on them right now. So 2021 Type 2 Silver Eagles in mint boxes or any quantity you want, $7.25 over. And I have enough in stock to take any size order right now within reason.
Well, Andy, our viewers are going to appreciate that. They've been probably waiting about a year for a chance to get Silver Eagles at a decent premium, and sounds like the lowest we've seen in a long time.
It is.
Also, folks, if you don't want to miss out on a single interview with Andy or any of our guests, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com. Over in the left-hand margin, put in your name and your email address. Get on our email list, because that way you'll get every single interview. Some people have been missing out on our announcements. Andy, you got something else to add?
I just want to say one other thing, Dunnigan. I like the hot seat questions. I think you should call it Hot Seat Tuesday. I mean, I'm all for it, because I want people to understand what this industry is all about. I got nothing to hide. I really do. I want people to understand the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the pitfalls. I want them to understand it. And I have no problem addressing publicly these types of questions. And quite frankly, I think peace of mind and sleep at night is the only asset you really need to worry about, or one of the biggest, let's say, the most important. And I want to help people get to that comfort level. Hopefully they end up doing business with us. But if they have questions they need to know about this industry like that, throw them at me. I got nothing to hide. And quite frankly, I think it's better that people understand, just what it entails to run a precious metals business. And it's a business, but I will tell you that to me, gold and silver have a much greater significance. And I don't know, to me, it's just immutable historical wealth that when all of this craziness settles and the dust clears, I think if you don't own precious metals right now, I think you're destined to really have a difficult time when traditional assets get or have a meeting with price discovery. Because right now, in an environment where interest rates have been controlled by the state, not by the market, price discovery is next to impossible, and they're all distorted. And this crackup boom where everything goes up and you see a slowdown, like the jobs report the other day, they were expecting 700,000, they got 200,000, something like that. Remember, what did the Fed say? That they're going to continue monetizing and buying 150 billion a month until they see employment numbers stabilize. Well, it's going the other way. It's just another way of saying they're never going to stop printing and monetizing and creating inflation and distortions. This more than ever is the reason why now you need to start to slowly, like the big money is doing, divest of your exposure to dollars and traditional assets. And all of you sitting on lots of profit in cryptocurrencies and in equities, think hard about this. Profit's not a four-letter word. Take some chips off the table, go to the cage and up to your hotel room, for Vegas parlance, with a pocket full of money. Don't sit in the casino long enough for them to take it away from you. And I think a lot of people will do that, because we're going to wake up one day on a Monday morning and see a whole new reality. And this is how it always happens. It will happen over a weekend. It'll happen in the middle of the night, and you'll wake up and the doors have been shut. So anyways, I appreciate the opportunity to sit on the hot seat and to answer questions. It's great. And I look forward to next week as well. And any other hot seat questions people want to send in to Dunnigan, please throw them in, and we'll see if I can tackle them next week.
Well, Andy, thank you for joining us on behalf of all of our viewers, for being here again with us on Liberty and Finance.
It is my pleasure. You stay well, my friend. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price, with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888-81-LIBERTY. And either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs.